Hello, everybody. Welcome to Straight Out of BS Podcast. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I really appreciate it. I just want to give a friendly reminder, if you support my work, even if you don't support anybody financially, it's totally fine. That's not expected. But what you can do to help me, it would really help, is if you could like the video, share the video, subscribe if you're not already, and leave a comment, because it shows the algorithm that people are interacting with the video, and so it pushes the algorithm up into people's algorithm that might not have ever seen my content. So more eyes on this means more awareness, means more changes we can potentially make, and more children we can potentially stop from getting sent to these places, and all sorts of stuff like reprogramming parents to like not be for programs, all sorts of stuff. So I want to thank anybody that's supported my podcast in any way. Thank you to my Patreon members, including you, Jeneen. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Anybody that's joined the channel, anybody that's donated financially, that stuff's never expected, so it's always super appreciated. And the majority of it gets reinvested into the podcast, and then I take a small percentage for myself. But I get like 70-80% that I reinvest into the podcast. So I'm getting like maybe 10 or 15% just because I don't feel right. Personally, I just don't feel right taking like all of it. I don't know if that's like a personal thing, but just me personally. So just know that most of that money, the majority, is going back into the podcast to improve it and whatnot. So thank you guys for that. I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction or anything like that. So on the count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and reintroduce my it's a return guest today. Go ahead and introduce yourself and like give like a brief like history, like where you went and like your experiences there, and then also after that just like tell people about your book.
Sure. My name is Jeneen Miller. I'm a survivor of institutional abuse. So I was personally involved in a reform school, and my parents tricked me into going to this camp, and I call it a camp because you can connect the dots of what kind of place this was. It was in Ramona, California, and it was worse than prison. I felt I couldn't write anybody. I couldn't make a phone call. I couldn't have visitors. I couldn't see my parents until 3 months into the program. Not that I wanted to see the very parents that locked me up in there, but that's the point. I didn't have a choice. And then you could not say what was happening in these places. So you could not tell your parents you were being abused without a consequence, and then they weren't going to believe you anyway. At any rate, these places are horrific. I was abused mentally, physically, and spiritually. I went in there as a Christian, and I came out doubting my salvation. And this preacher abused us so bad that he made us feel like we were so unworthy to God, to society. I didn't even feel like I belonged in society afterwards. But if you want, you can buy my book. It's called Pieces of Victory. I don't know if you can see that or not.
It's cutting off like the top of the book for some reason.
You can look it up on Amazon. It's on Amazon, the audio, the paperback, the hard copy, and the ebook. It's all available on Amazon and iTunes and Audible. So it'll just explain the details of how horrific this place was. I'm not going to really get into the details on the show about the horrid things that happened in this place, but just know that child abuse is going on across our nation, and it needs to be stopped in these types of programs, such as boot camps, rehabilitation programs, academies for children, boot camps for children. You get the idea. Conversion therapies. My friend James, who is on Netflix, Haunted, third one down, called Cult of Torture. It explains the horrific details of what happened to him in a concentration camp. It was a serial killer's dungeon. It was horrifying to know that he suffered these things, but I just want to use these types of experiences to warn parents. Please do not send your children to these places. Keep them in the house. Keep your Do you need a moment, honey? I'm sorry.
No. My cat's just like fucking with some shit. Look. Come on. Out of there. Out of there. No, you know better. You know better than to chew my cords. Don't do that. But yeah.
Breaking up the tension of how serious these matters are. So maybe we needed that, right? At any rate, back to these types of camps. It's if you have a troubled teen, it's best to just get counseling, maybe some in-home counseling, maybe a day program where you're permitted to be there at any given time. There's so many red flags on if you can't speak to your child, if you can't just come onto the property at the drop of a hat. These are red flags. If you can't call your child, most likely they're being abused.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. And for anybody that's interested in her story about like being in the program, that's available in the first episode, the part 1 of her of her interview, which is like I can't remember the episode number. I've done so many of these now. But it's back towards the start of the channel. I think it was like 20 or 30 or something like that. Can't remember exactly, but just look for Jeneen Miller on my channel and it'll come up. I did an interview with her and then she did an interview with me. So we have that for people that are interested in that. And then you wanted to talk about what happened afterwards. So walk us through like what you remember about when you like left the program, like what led up to you leaving the program, and then talk about like what happened after you got out.
So I think what happened is a lot of survivors were going to a private Christian school that I chose to go prior to Victory Christian Academy. So I was very popular at the school. It was a Cornerstone Christian school in Camarillo. And I was very popular. I had good grades in school. Boy, that's grounds to send your kid to a reform school. I'm just being a smart aleck. At any rate, I'm not saying any child deserves to go to these places, whether they're on drugs or not. It doesn't matter. I didn't do drugs. I was a role model student. I did my homework, and very popular and respected by fellow students there. But I think what happened was word got around from survivors that were coming to my former school and saying, hey, these girls are being abused. Now they're going to my parents and saying, hey, your daughter is being abused, take her out. This is speculation. I don't know if this happened or not. I'm assuming it did, because why all of a sudden did my parents take me out? They were going to leave me there for a year. I was there for 8 months, 8 months too long to endure child abuse. At any rate, I don't think my parents knew I was being abused by any means, but I did come from a dysfunctional family that did abuse me. And they didn't know they were abusing me. If they were to read my book to a therapist would know I was being abused by them and maybe educate them that that's not how to go about raising a child, but that's a whole new program and a new discussion altogether. At any rate, I really don't think they knew I was being abused until I think word got around at my former school. And then no one told me I was leaving. No one told me, no one said anything. One of the dorm mothers who was abusive came up to me, said, your parents are here. Or I don't even think she said, your parents are here. I need you to go get your things. And I just understood that as my parents are here. And I thought, I can't believe it. Is it a dream? I couldn't believe it was happening. I was shaking. I was packing my stuff. And the minute I got to my parents, they hugged me, but it was after being abused in that school and my parents just thinking I was such a bad kid, because I knew they did, otherwise they wouldn't have put me in this school, right?
Yeah.
They thought I was a liar about confronting them about sexual abuse in the family. The preacher told me my parents hated me. You know, I don't think my parents hated me, but they really just thought I was a bad seed, right? And I knew that. Anyway, they picked me up. We got in the car, and I said, what made you pick me up early, right? because I was going to be locked there for a year. And my father said, well, it's Easter, and Easter is a time of forgiveness. So we forgive you. Forgive me for what? Being raped by my uncle, sexually abused by my uncle. He's lucky that they beat me down so bad emotionally that I just didn't fight. I didn't argue. And I was deathly afraid that they were going to send me back there. And if they were to flip the car around and take me there, I would have jumped out of the car while it was in motion. That's how scared I was about Victory Christian Academy. It was like hell here on this earth.
Okay. And what happened after you got back home?
After I got back home, it was quite an adjustment. I just didn't feel like I fit in. It was just such a kind of a culture shock. Only a survivor would really know what I'm talking about, or somebody who's been in jail, prison. I think a lot of prisoners feel this way, that you feel like you don't belong in society. This preacher, except in prison, I don't think you have a preacher every single day saying you're not good enough for God, you're not good enough for society, you're not good, you're not good, you're not good. Everything was, you're a slut, you're a whore, you're an alcoholic, you're a druggie. I was called everything you can imagine, a liar, a manipulator. The list went on. And the preacher had a Bible in his hands, worse. Now it's in the name of God.
Yeah.
And, I don't blame God for this. I blame humans. I don't like humans, quite frankly. I'm sorry. And this is part of why. I don't think all humans are bad or, are monsters. I'm just saying I don't have faith in humans. And honestly, that's all right. I have faith in the afterlife, and I have faith in God. I think the reason why I don't blame God for this is because of the fact that we have free will, and it's not God's fault. We have, can I say, assholes here?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're not on a Christian show, so I guess I'm okay. Anyway, yeah, it's not God's fault. People are mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Our place. So, anyway, back to I'm so sorry. Back to go ahead. Did you have a question?
No, I said you're fine. Go ahead.
So I felt very nervous, high anxiety when I came back. I suffered from a lot of anxiety. I felt like I was on the edge. I felt that my parents were going to, if I went into the car, they were going to take me back to this place. I felt that no human liked me at all, no matter what I did. And I was a good student in school, and I ended up letting my grade point average go down. I just didn't care anymore. And it wasn't a retaliation. It's just, I was in a state of mind. And then I'm also a rape survivor, right? And this preacher made it crystal clear that it's a woman's fault. And it's how you dressed, how you looked, how you acted. It was, no matter what, you're the one to blame. Well, he's also a sex offender. Usually sex offenders say these things, right?
Yeah.
I have to question somebody in the church blaming a woman for being raped. Usually they're sex offenders. Anyway.
They're just gaslighting you.
Right. They're just gaslighting you. And we were all gaslit the whole time. It wasn't just one student. It was all of us. At any rate, I felt like I needed to put on layers and layers of clothes. I felt dirty. I felt ashamed of myself. I went from being confident and going out of my way to stir up conversation with another student to, I don't know, just being a recluse. And I had a big struggle, and what hit me was my mother. She was in shock when, I wasn't allowed to go back to the Christian school. because the Camarillo Christian School said Jeneen's a good student, but unless she gets therapy, because they knew I was being abused, at least in the school. They probably knew I was being abused at home too, but they were emphasizing on the school, I'm sure. And a therapist would figure out everything anyway once they got me in there, right? So my father didn't want me to go to therapy because he was afraid everything would unravel, the truth would unravel, right? Why else wouldn't you want your kid to go to therapy?
Yeah, and then therapists are required to disclose things like that. So
Right.
yeah.
So I ended up not being able to go to this school because of my parents. They were going to allow me to come back. Jeneen's a good student. We welcome her with open arms, but we need to get her into therapy, which was probably the best thing that that school could have done for me, right? Is therapy. Okay. So no therapy, and off to Newbury Park High School I went. So I went to Newbury Park High School for a semester. I only had a semester left. It was my senior year, so I missed my senior year. I missed out on senior pictures, homecoming. It was like being punished for being sexually abused, pretty much. That's
Did
how
did your credits transfer?
Yes, good questions. Everything transferred. I was lucky, and that's a good question because I asked a lot of my survivors this, because a lot of times the credits from Victory Christian Academy do not. And I think because I was such a good student before I went there, and it was just a semester that I was at Victory Christian Academy, everything they pretty much focused on Camarillo Christian School and my grades there, and everything just fell into place. Thank God.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I screwed up because of what happened to me. So I wasn't doing my homework, because 9 times out of 10 to get good grades, you just do your homework, right? That's why I was such a great student. And I didn't feel like doing homework. I wasn't studying. I didn't care. I just didn't give a shit anymore after this. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, again, a retaliation. I just couldn't focus. Yeah. I could not focus. And I was already having a hard time studying already to get a good GPA. So the way it takes me a lot longer to study than the average Joe. But once I memorize something and I use it, I memorize it. So I would study and talk to myself and just keep going over and over and over and over until I got it. And I would ace tests and I would do all my homework. But that requires focus, right?
Yeah.
A lot of concentration. And I felt like I struggled with that, but I could do it. And now I've been abused in this camp. I can't do that anymore. I'm done. I'm done. At any rate, I mean, I just, there was like no will to fight anymore. I just kind of threw in the towel scholastically. My mother comes knocking on my door. You're failing. You're failing one class. I was failing one class. I never failed a class.
Yeah.
I was horrified getting a C, right?
Yeah.
I am failing a class. Well, gee, I wonder why. It was almost like, you're failing. This just validates you're a bad kid again. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't failing before you locked me up in a reform school. Now all of a sudden, yeah, those exact words are in my book too, by the way. At any rate, she said, I talked to the school. They said, if you pass the GED test, you can graduate. You can walk down the aisle. And you need to go on Monday. This is the time you have to go to the library. I said, fine. And so I did, and I passed the GED test. I thought to myself, if I pass, and I didn't even study for it because, again, I just could not focus on anything.
Yeah.
Everything just up into random access memory, and I was able to pass the GED test and walk down the aisle, and I graduated. Thank God. because I needed to get out of that house. And so after graduation, my mother slaps down on my, I guess my forebed on my water bed. I had just like a little forebed, and she said, here's some nanny positions that you can, you can apply for, and you can live with them. So instead of college, I received this. But I mean, nothing against being a nanny by any means, right? But I just felt my mother really just didn't have any goals for me to attend college. In fact, she had a meeting at the school before I got locked into her reform school, telling me that college is not for me. And ironically, the only person that told me that college was not for me, other than my mother, was the Bible teacher. I think my mom presented it in such a way where I got so stressed out over school. And yeah, I might have gotten stressed out, but the stress was coming from being abused and being yelled at while I'm trying to study. Boy, what a concept that is, right? Anyway.
He probably didn't want you to think for yourself. That's probably why he was like, college, don't go to college. Don't think for yourself.
Maybe. Or maybe he just bought the whole, oh, I don't want my child to be stressed out BS. Maybe he bought that. I don't. But at any rate, to have a teacher discourage a student from going to college is like beyond me. It's beyond.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But my Algebra 2 teacher, Mrs. Thee, I'll never forget her. I'll say her name, Mrs. Thee. She told me, Jeneen, college is not like high school. You're not going to have 6 periods. You may have 3 or 4, and it's less stressful. And so she painted it entirely, and she said, I have faith in you that you can do this. And that was before I got locked up in a reform school. So I had that teacher coming to me. But at any rate, back to the whole nanny application. Again, nothing against being a nanny. But I had a different vision for myself of going to college, right? So I ended up asking one of my girlfriends, Kara Pozzarina, I said, here's my situation. My mom wants me to leave the house and be a nanny. I don't want to do that. Do you think your parents can have me stay at your house? And she offered it. She said, yes, let me talk to my family. Let me see if they'll take you in. I'm 17 when I graduated, by the way. It's only because I started school at 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm 17. At any rate, they took me in at 17. I'm already done. I graduated. It's summer. I took a garbage bag and I took all my belongings, which wasn't much, put them in one garbage bag, and I maybe had a shoe box of letters, and that was it. I left home, and I told my mother, I'm going to Kara's. I'm going to Kara's to live. And she said, well, this world is tough. You're never going to make it. Oh, it's a cruel world out there, and you're never going to make it. Those were her exact words. You're never going to make it. And I thought, it can't be any more cruel than when I have to deal with you.
Yeah.
It can't be any crueler than this. And I was right. I mean, it is tough out here, but it was worse there. And then I tried to tell my father at one point of what happened to me at this school. I said, Dad, you don't know what happened to me at Victory Christian Academy. I said, why did you send me there? That place was for bad girls. And I don't mean to say bad girls are at the school, because 9 times out of 10, stories are like mine, and maybe they had bad grades. And a lot of times it's because these kids are being abused.
Yeah.
And it's the outcome of being abused. Somehow, by the grace of God, I was able to still study while all this crap was going on in my household.
Yeah.
And I was a good student. And I didn't do drugs. Why didn't they give me a drug test? They didn't even give me a drug test.
They just automatically believed that you were doing drugs, right?
Yep, because of how I was reacting to them. So they were gaslighting me, and I was reacting to being gaslit, and they thought I was doing drugs. Well, a simple drug test would have sufficed.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
but then of course you could have faked it. You faked the drug test.
I just can't win, right?
Yeah.
At any rate, I mean, I'm not going to lie. My reaction to them gaslighting was not pretty. You know, but when you're saying prove it after telling them, you know, that you were sexually abused, and they keep taunting you and not helping you, and I had to deal with this, and it was either your fault or you're lying, your fault or you're lying. I just couldn't win. Or why are you telling us this now? What would it made a difference if I told you before?
Yeah.
That would have started, you know, earlier. I felt.
Did anything ever happen to your uncle that did this to you?
No, and I'm glad you're bringing this to my attention right now, because I did fill out a rape report to the police department, and the reason why I did that is not because I wanted to. In fact, I blame myself for what happened, because um, it was statutory rape, and because it was statutory rape, a lot of survivors have conflicting emotions about this being their fault because they went along with it, or they were treated better because of it.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a relationship. Well, you can't have sex with a minor. And I was in his care. And so I had those conflicting emotions going on, which is normal. And I was dragging my feet on doing it because I felt guilty. I felt like it was my fault. At any rate, I ended up doing it because in the 80s, I don't know what about now, I don't think that this is a thing now, but in the 80s, I had to report it. I had to make a report out before I could receive counseling. And I wanted to receive counseling, mainly because my boyfriend at the time was pushing this. And I'm glad he did. Somebody had some sense.
Yeah.
And it was a 17, 18-year-old kid that had some sense. At any rate, I reported.
So did you write this report like right after it happened, or soon after it happened, or was this years later?
It wasn't terribly long after. I would say about a year.
Okay, it's not bad.
Year and a half max. And I have that report, by the way. I retrieved it. But not only do I have that report, I was looking for a report because my mother called the cops on me, because when all this was going on, we don't believe you, you're lying. I was in a toxic relationship with my family. And my boyfriend said, why don't you just run away? Or why don't you just come to my house? I don't even think he said run away. Why don't you just come to my house? And I did. I went to his house, and I pretty much stayed in his closet. And then when his parents went to work, then I came out of the closet. But the point is, my mother, we get a knock on the door at 11 a.m. And I don't ditch school. I don't do any of these things. So it must be bad that I broke curfew and, you know, broke the rules and went over to my boyfriend's house. You know, my mother knew I would be at my boyfriend's house, right? But we get a knock on the door, and it's the cops. So my mother called the cops on me.
For a runaway, right?
What's that?
For a runaway, she reported.
A runaway. And for what? Less than 24 hours. And this is what I was trying to retrieve. I was trying to retrieve this report. And at any rate, the cops drove me back and I said, I cannot believe my mother called the cops. Oh, well, she's just worried about you, and she's so concerned. Concerned? All she had to do was get in her car and drive over there. Instead, now she's wasting time, wasting our taxpayers' money. And and making something on my record, right?
I think they should investigate the family in situations like that. I think there should be like a statute or something where if a child runs away from home, you probably shouldn't well, I'm kind of torn on this. I still think there should be a statute like if a child runs away, like you should not investigate the family, but you should like talk to the family, like you should go and talk to the family and like give your own evaluation of if that's
Right.
like kind of like a CPS thing. I have my own feelings about CPS. CPS is, in my opinion, crooked. A lot of CPS is crooked and involved in sending children away. A lot of the foster carers, that's a whole nother thing, but they should be interviewing the family and making their own judgment. Is there a reason the child ran away?
Right. Children just don't run away or try to get out of the house for no reason. There's a reason.
So if there's a reason for them running away, then the family should be vetted first before they bring the child back, I think. You know what I mean? Because
go ahead.
If you're bringing the child back to an abusive environment, then you're just enabling that abuse to continue to happen.
I agree.
Yeah.
They're trying to find out the root of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. They're just automatically assuming and giving blind faith to the family because they're your family. They could never do any wrong.
It's more like, oh, poor mom is concerned for the child.
Yeah, exactly.
How about the troubled family?
Yeah.
I think that we all need to treat this as a whole family dynamic instead of just singling out a child.
Because you're automatically bad if you run away, usually. You know what I mean? You're automatically the bad person. I know I was when I ran away. You're bad because you're running away. Well, why was I running away? Because I had unsolved trauma that nobody was addressing. Nobody protected me when I got raped. Or just they protected me, but they didn't like. What I wanted is more than they gave me. I wanted them to like grab me in their arms and be like, this person will never touch you again. We'll make sure that they're prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We will protect you. And instead I got a super lame investigation where they literally just went and asked the person that raped me, did you do this? No, of course I didn't do that. Went and asked his sister, has he ever done anything like this to you? No, he's never done anything like that to me. And they're like, oh, I guess he didn't do it then.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
and you really can identify with this. So yeah. Children don't run away for no reason at all. There's a reason.
Yeah.
There's definitely a reason. I have bigger things to do than to run away. Like I said before, at that point, this is before the reform school, I was studying. I needed to go to school so I can continue my grade point average.
Yeah.
And I worked too. I paid for my own prom dress. This is the type of child that you put into a reform school.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. But I'm not going to lie, my reaction to being gaslit. Remember everything that you just said? It's almost your 20 question. Your 20 question and you're the survivor. You're the victim here. And now they're not believing you.
Yeah.
What is going to happen? The child is going to be angry. Was I angry?
Yeah.
Yes. Was I yelling? Yes. Was I dysfunctional? You better believe I was dysfunctional. But why?
Yeah, exactly. Why is she acting like that?
Right.
Not she's acting like that and so she's bad. Why is she acting like that? You know what I mean?
Go ahead.
I said not that she's bad because she's acting like that. You have to look beyond that and be like, why is she acting like that?
Right. Let's get to the root.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at the outcome.
Yep.
That's the root of it.
Yep.
I just don't believe that people dig enough. People need to start digging.
They do. And I also feel like policemen, personally, I feel like need better training for their job. Personally, I feel like they don't get enough training for their job. Of course, there's bad cops that do bad things, but as a whole, I don't hate police. I've had cops save my life. Like personally, I've had cops like come and save me when I'm trying to commit suicide a couple times. They've done some outreach with me, so I know that there's good cops, and most of them have good intentions. There are some bad seeds, but I feel like they need better training, and I feel like if they had better training and knew better how to address these kind of situations, that maybe they would be gone about differently. I could be completely wrong, but that's just my personal take on it.
I'm glad you had a good experience about that. And they were able to help you, especially during the roughest times of your life. Sorry about my bird back there.
No, it's totally fine.
Let's talk about reports. So remember how my mother called the cops on me? I went to try to resurrect that police report because I was able to resurrect the police report that I made on the rape, right?
Yep.
But I couldn't. I could not retrieve. They never saved that report.
Oh, wow. See, that's crooked.
It was never saved, by the way. I wanted to point that out. Never. So I guess back in the 80s, this is what the police department told me. I said, why did they not make a report? Because they had to archive the other one. Because remember, it was back in my day.
Yeah. When people would actually use books and like bookkeeping was a thing before computers were like really a thing. Yeah.
Right. They had to retrieve it the old fashioned way. Right.
Yeah.
So that report wasn't made, but lo and behold, there was another report. So they said it back in the 80s, they weren't obligated to make a report. They just brought the kids back home with no report.
Unbelievable.
No trace at all. At any rate, up comes another report. What's this? What's this report? I thought it was that at first. I thought it was when my mother had called the cops when I ran away. This report was after I left home at 17, and they said, we're reporting our daughter, a minor, running away. She ran away from home. She's had other incidences where she's ran away before. What? One? For less than 24 hours, and it's because you accused me of, being a liar, or I'm the one at fault. Can't make up your mind which way you want to fly. But anyway, that report was in there. Had no idea they made a report on that. And that really stirred. I mean, I'm over it now, but man, that really hurt. It was just unbelievable. My mother was kicking me out of the house at 17. You don't go to a 17-year-old and say, why don't you go and have a nanny job where you can live there, and then you can earn your keep of living there by being nanny.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Basically, you're kicking me out of the house. Then I leave and tell you I'm going to my girlfriend's house.
Yeah.
And then you make a police report to cover your ass so you don't get sued, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we need to trust and believe children. Like, I personally believe all survivors, because my thing that I've been telling more and more people lately is like, look at the P. Diddy case, okay? Look at it just on the base surface, okay? You look at it, the base surface, like, people say they were raped multiple times. The number does not matter, okay? The fact is that they were raped, they were taken advantage of, they were abused, okay? That's what matters, okay? It doesn't matter how many times it happened. It happened once, and that's enough for this to be a horrible thing. So it's just like, it happening once, like, people need to stop tripping about all these, oh, it happened like 50 times. Like, you were not right. It happened 45. It doesn't matter how many times it happened. It happened. They were abused. This is what we need to look at, and not stop focusing so much on the numbers and what they're saying, because people can misremember stuff. Not saying they're lying. Okay. When trauma happens, we disassociate. Okay. There's certain memories that I don't have from my time in boarding school that are just in the back of my mind. So you might not even realize that you're giving information that might not be fully true. And I'm not saying that people are lying. I'm saying that it's possible in trauma to not remember things 100%. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that they're lying. That doesn't mean that you didn't need to discredit the witness or whatever you're doing. Like, they were still abused, okay, regardless. And there's a fraction of truth to everything, I feel like. So I just wanted to point that out. Like, we need to trust kids. We need to trust survivors. We need to give them the table to speak, and just take it at a base level. They were abused, and go off that,
I agree.
Yeah.
And especially since a lot of more survivors are coming forth, it's very empowering for them. But I just feel like we need to keep going because these places still exist today. There are over 100,000 of these so-called concentration camps here in America.
And
They're
that's
really
just America. That's just America. This
right,
is worldwide, you know what I mean? So,
right. It's worldwide, but over 100,000 in the U.S. alone.
yep. And that's probably not even like an accurate not. It's probably more, is what I'm saying. It's like that's probably an estimated number. You know what I mean? But I guarantee there's more that we don't know about. And it's so disturbing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to get that little thing in. I'm
There's
very
also,
passionate about it.
there's also a death toll of these kids that are being killed in these programs.
Yep.
I mean, let's just go over the list. I didn't want to get into my program per se, but this is just in general. They're starving the kids. They're also prohibiting them from going to the restroom whenever they want. I mean, this is totally abusive. It's control. It's torture. They are medically neglecting these children because they're afraid they're going to run away. And they're just medically neglecting them, and they're calling them liars and manipulators, and so no medical attention. They're starving them. I've never been to the dentist or the doctor in all the 8 months that I was at that school.
Should you have been? Like, do you feel like you should have gone to the doctor? Were there times where you needed to go to the doctor and they didn't let you?
But there were other students that did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, if someone tried to commit suicide, they weren't taking them to the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, why they were trying to commit suicide. They just wanted to escape hell because that's what these places are. So I could see that happening. So sexual abuse is going on in these places, neglect, child endangerment, not also dehydration. I was dehydrated a lot. Over exhaustion. We were working without pay, so it was child slavery. We were working without pay.
Yep. Yep. And they call it a privilege.
And
you get to work.
Right. I'm sorry?
I was like, and then they see it as a privilege. Look, you should be happy. You're privileged. You get to work. You get to do this instead of it's child labor. Call it what it is. You know what I mean? That's what it is. But they make it seem like, oh, this is a privilege. You earned the right to work for us. You know what I mean? Or work.
I didn't mind working as a child. I wasn't lazy by any means. Like I said before, I worked and paid for my prom dress when I was a kid. I babysat. I worked at McDonald's. I worked at Mary Health of the Sick as a receptionist. These are jobs I did when I was a teenager. I was this is before I got locked up in a reform school. Let's just make this picture. Oh my God. I'm trying to make it comical, but really it's pathetic. At any rate, the point I'm making is I had no problems doing that. I had no qualms doing that. I also volunteered at my church. So I don't mind volunteering my time, but I choose to volunteer my time because this church that I was going to before I got locked up was actually doing good things for people, not abusing little girls.
Yeah, under the guise of God.
Volunteer my time for this Victory Christian Academy? Oh, hell no. I'm not doing slavery. I don't want to do child slavery, and I don't want to volunteer my time. Yeah. But yeah, they called it a privilege.
Yep. Yep, you earned this, and look how great you are for earning this, you know. And it's the gaslighting is astronomical in these places. It really is. It's just like, no, this isn't child labor. It's just like you earned this. You should be happy, you know. Like there's nothing wrong with this.
Right. It's almost like they're trying to teach us values, but what they're doing is they're getting free labor. And don't forget, we had to supervise other kids. So you had other kids supervising other kids. So they didn't have to work. Again, they were getting off the hook on working. And they were teaching children to abuse other children.
Yeah, indoctrination. Indoctrinating the others.
that's abusive right there. To
Yep.
train a child to abuse another child is child abuse.
Yep.
And I can't even imagine how many others who tried to climb up the hierarchy just so they wouldn't be abused. So basically, you're trying to survive, and that's how you climb up the hierarchy. You know what I'm talking about, and most survivors know. But read my book, you'll learn more about what I'm talking about, and other survivors' books.
Essentially, it's just different levels, like different levels and different points in the program.
Right. It's here to abuse other children. And again, they don't have to supervise these kids. The kids are taking care of themselves. So this is what we're fighting for. And Paris Hilton trying to pass the federal bill, and Biden just signed it, right?
Yeah.
Talking about, okay. The meat of that bill has been taken out, by the way. I don't know if you know that. We should, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Here's a good example of what I mean by the meat being taken out of. I think this bill different bill. This is a different bill. This is, I think, 605, something 605. I don't know what it was. It was something that James was trying to pass, legislation James was trying to pass. And it was about conversion therapies. And a lot of the LGBTQ community were saying, yes, we're banning conversion therapies. They banned conversion therapies. No, try again. They haven't done that. So here's the bill. This is what I'm talking about, a bill that has the meat taken out. It's bogus. The bill is bogus.
Yeah.
So this particular bill was to ban conversion therapies from abusing children further, because these conversion therapies are abusing children to be straight. Okay, they're not praying the gay way, they're torturing the gay way. That's what a conversion therapy is. It is, okay? And in this bill was an exemption. The exemption is, but all religious institutions are exempt.
Of course. Of course.
Who started conversion therapies? Hello?
Yeah.
All these religious institutions are the ones that copped up with a conversion therapy because they don't want gays. They don't want gays. They want to pray the gay away. They're not praying the gay away. They're torturing them.
Which still doesn't work. It actually makes things worse, actually.
Yes. I'm glad you pointed that out, because it makes things worse, because everybody is blindsided by this. They think, oh, well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. We don't have to worry about conversion therapies anymore because they don't exist. They're banned.
Yeah.
No, they are not banned. Welcome to our world of the troubled teen industry. Wake up, people. They just gutted that bill. Now, maybe we can, I don't know how they gutted Paris Hilton's bill, but I think we need to find out how they gutted that.
Yeah, I think some people probably got to the people writing the bill or whatever or something. It all comes back to money and greed. It's guaranteed it has to do with money and greed and power. That people just, no, you're not going to do this because there's way too much money that we're getting from these kids because they make so much money off of the children. They really do.
It's $1 billion industry, and just follow the money.
Yep.
It's really, if there wasn't any money behind it, we wouldn't be talking here right now.
No.
All these places would be closed.
Yeah, I had my doubts. I had my doubts about the Sika bill. I was hopeful, but I had my doubts. Like, I'm always hopeful, but I have my doubts. I try and be realistic about things, And then another thing, like, people need to read the actual bill instead of assuming that what somebody says about the bill is just true. You know what I mean? You should read it yourself. Right. Because it says that,
So both of us should read that bill that Biden signed.
Yeah.
And see how they gutted it out, and we should have another show on that.
Yeah, I'm down. Yeah. We should get a copy of the original. Get a copy of the original and then compare the two.
Right. Good idea. And we should have James on the show.
Yeah.
James,
Yeah. I've been trying to get James to do an interview. So yeah, he's just been dealing with some health complications and stuff. So,
exactly.
but yeah, I'd love that.
I just talked to him this morning and last night. So let me talk to him about that. And when he's up for it, let's go over how they gutted that bill. And let's resurrect the other one,
Yeah, let's do it.
conversion fees, because
Yeah.
he knows that one very, very well.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
He was part of that legislation. So
Yeah, legislation is the only way we can really make changes. And like, honestly, like, I wish that all of Congress would like look at all my channel and like literally use that. And, like I've been thinking like for my channel, like hopefully eventually someday these videos can be used as evidence against these.
I agree with you.
Yeah, because in a way it is evidence. It's documentation of what happened. It's
Right.
not like first person you're there, but it's pretty much that, because if you're an empath in any way, an empath like I am, then you're right there with the person when they're telling the story. So it's like you're right there. It's
Exactly.
literally like you're right there, and you can tell people like just facial just facial like features and stuff like that, like the way people hold themselves, the way they talk about things, their voice inflections when they're talking about it. Like if you know what to look for, you can tell people are not making this shit up.
You
They're
definitely
just not.
there's that gut wrenching emotion in someone's voice. That's another reason why I wanted, by the way, I narrated my book, Pieces of Victory, because I was tossing around, teeter-tottering with the idea, should I have the actress that played me, Valerie Lohman, speak and do the audio, because she has such a beautiful voice and is really good with emotion, or should I do it? And I decided to do it because it's just my emotion out there, and it's no better job than a survivor, coming from a survivor, because it's real. It,
Yeah.
it's real.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it, just all of my emotion and everything in that book.
Yeah.
The highs and the lows. And by the way, it's not all dark. Half of my book is a love story. So it's a love story that got me through the darkest days of my life. For those who don't know about Pieces of Victory.
Yeah, it's a good book. You should read it.
Thank you.
You should read it for sure. We kind of got sidetracked a little bit. So you went to you were a nanny, and then what happened after that?
Okay, so I never became a nanny, but it was presented to me by my mother. So that was her way of get out of the house. That was her way of saying get out of the house, right? So I ended up living with my friend Kara, and I'm 17 years old, and her parents took me in. They did not charge me for rent at all whatsoever.
Nice.
I did not have a car at this point. I didn't have anything. And they tried to get me a job at GTE. Her father worked for GTE, so they tried to get me a job there with benefits. And I guess I just really wanted to take action, and I was waiting for an outcome of those results, and I was getting impatient. So I ended up looking for work, and I landed a job at Henson Aviation, and I was their invoicer slash receptionist. And they had dummy terminals connected to a server. It was back in the day. It was back in I think I started that company I started working for that company in 1989.
Wow.
So it was a mom and pop company, and they took care of us. They were I started making $5.50 an hour. Remember, this is back in 1989. And I ended up leaving with 12, and I had benefits, and every Christmas they would give us a bonus.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really nice for a first-time job, and I had medical benefits, and they pretty much took me under their wing and trained me. And the ladies in the office actually encouraged me during election time to write my congressman and talk about what happened at the school to get it closed down.
Cool.
So I got a hold of a lot of politicians at 17, 18 years old. They encouraged me to do this. And I was notified by someone from San Diego, and his name was Rick Peralto. And he was social services, and he went to court for me.
Nice.
And to my surprise, I could not believe that they did not get him for child abuse. I could not believe, because he said, Jeneen, remember this is before the internet. Jeneen, your stories match girls from 1985.
Yeah.
And there was no internet back then. You're not in contact with them. You don't know who they are. Your stories match their stories.
Yeah.
So a lot of survivors were coming forth, made reports. This preacher got a slap on the wrist for not being fire code compliant and not having a license. And I said, what about the child abuse? Nothing on child abuse. Nothing. He said, do you want to do a civil suit? Well, do I have to see the perpetrator in court? And he said, yes. Will I have to see Palmer in court? Yes. I don't want to do it. I was so scared to do it. I was afraid. So that's why I don't think there should be statute of limitations, because I was so afraid to do it. Now I have a problem. Now he's deceased, but before he died, I was willing to do it, but statute of limitations, right?
Yeah.
And I was so naive. I didn't realize that suing him would have ended it. Because if you don't have a business, if you don't have any money, you don't have a business. And if you don't have a business, you can't keep hurting children, or at least it could have prevented something from happening again. I suppose without a criminal record, he could go work for somebody else and abuse more children. But that's the thing. These people need to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Michael Palmer wasn't prosecuted. Mac Ford wasn't prosecuted. Mac Ford was a serial rapist, and he was not prosecuted.
They protect people like that.
They're protecting. So sad. Back on track. So back to Henson Aviation. I worked for Henson Aviation for about 2.5 years. And then a friend of mine who I ate lunch with started talking to me about Pepperdine University. And he said, I just landed a job at Pepperdine University. I'm part of the moving crew, so I get to go around the different departments and I know what positions are available. Why don't you work at Pepperdine University? So I said, I don't know. This job requires a bachelor's degree. I don't know if I could do it. We'll just try, he said. And I did. I applied for a word processing specialist in HAC. And this was in probably 1991, 92, somewhere around there.
So computers were just coming into.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. It was when Microsoft 5.5 for DOS. I think they were ending WordPerfect at this time and converting over to DOS, DBase4, and Microsoft 5.5 for DOS. So this job entailed troubleshooting with software program.
Okay.
DOS inside and out. People would lose things on the hard drive, forgot where they saved them, and it was my job to retrieve them, and they just thought you were a hero for doing this.
Awesome.
Just to copy something from the hard drive to a floppy disk, they just thought you were a god. That was my error.
And it's such easy work once you know how to do it. You know what I mean?
To do it, it's easy squeezy, and I really enjoyed doing it. But in addition to that, I was doing dictation, memorandums, I was mail merging, you name it. So I was doing all these projects, and in between, getting calls, having to go around campus. It was good. I liked it. It was a great experience. It taught me different programs, and because I learned those programs, I'm able to apply and learn more and more and more programs. So
Yeah.
I wasn't IT per se, but I knew programs proficiently enough to teach them to someone else and to troubleshoot when someone had a missing chevron in an if statement and it wasn't merging with their DBase 4.
Yeah.
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 It's a whole new language back in my day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough to land that job without even an associate's degree. So
Nice.
I ended up at a university, just not a student. And I suppose I was a student in training because I was trained it was all on the job training and I was
Yeah.
getting paid for it. So it was even better. I didn't have to shell out any money and I was getting trained and then I would climb up the ladder.
Yeah. You got to make money too.
Right, you have to make money. And it was perfect for me. Would I do this all over again? Differently? No. I'm glad things happened the way they did. And even the trauma that I experienced in retrospect, everything in retrospect, right? It made me the character I am today. And then if I didn't go through the reform school, I would not be an activist. I would not know firsthand how horrific these places are. And I wouldn't be fighting. So I wouldn't change a thing. This was my mission. This is your mission.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have to deal with a lot of the aftermath, but in retrospect, I feel this is my calling. This was supposed to happen.
For sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want people to know about your experience afterwards?
It was definitely not easy, especially after getting out. I just wanted to die, really.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to do anything because I knew I had, deep in my heart, I knew I had work to do. But I didn't want to be here anymore. It wasn't easy. I went through a lot of therapy because it was bad enough. I went through the sexual abuse, and I know you can identify with this, but then to get ostracized from your family and get locked up, and then they abuse you. And then when you come out, they don't believe you, and now you don't have any support on that. It was just one thing after another after another. Do I forgive them? Yes, I forgive them, but I'm not going to, I wish them the best, but I'm not going to go over there and mingle.
Yeah.
Just because I cannot do it. It's too much CPTSD for me. I wish them well, but it's just so hard for me to continue being abused. I don't want to be abused anymore. I'm done. I'm
What did you want to be when you were younger?
me.
Like when you grew up? Yeah.
I wanted to be a lot of things. I wanted to be a flight attendant because I like to travel.
I could see you as a flight attendant.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
My bird is laughing in the background. I wanted to be a model when I was a little kid, but I wanted to. As I got older, I wanted to be a therapist.
Interesting. Yeah, I've thought about being a therapist. I'm kind of already a therapist. I just don't.
Sure.
Yeah. I definitely am, like, for sure. So I'm thinking about it, but that's awesome.
And how many years now are you sober, by the way?
Like over 3.5. I've lost track, but 3.5, something like that.
What an inspiration you are. And I feel that in retrospect, everything in retrospect, because you had used that as a coping mechanism and out of control, and you got out of it, you're able to inspire and help other addicts to do the same.
Yeah, because if I can do it, like, I statistically I shouldn't be alive. Like, I'm like a statistical anomaly. Like, if you were to like compare me to any other person using the amount of drugs I was using, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I was using a lot of drugs and I was extremely self-destructive and I just didn't care. If you were to compare me to any other addict, like, they'd be dead. Like, I'm just, there's specific reasons that I'm still here. Like, you know, police saved my life a couple of times. My dad saved my life a couple of times. Just like, statistically, I shouldn't be here. So just like when people try and tell me like, oh, I can't do it, it's so hard. It's just like, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, you just have to want something different. Like, you have to really want something different. People can't force you to get clean. Like, that whole thing, like, just lock people up, it doesn't work. Like, they might stay sober. Like, some people, maybe like less than 1% will stay sober just because they were away from the drugs. But you have to really want a change. And so, like, I had to reach rock bottom and just realize that I wanted a change. And that's the only time that because I went to rehab several times. And it wasn't until I actually, like, was ready that I actually stayed clean. So I definitely think.
You hit rock bottom and then you just said, I have enough of this.
Yeah.
Had enough of it.
Yeah. Just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, honestly, and just having nowhere to live and no friends, no money, nothing. Every single thing, every single last dollar that I made went to my drug addiction.
Wow.
I wouldn't even spend it on food. Like, I'd just be like, oh, no, I just need to get high, because if I'm not high, I have these thoughts come racing back, and then I become suicidal. So I just, like, I can't. It was a vicious cycle.
Right.
Where it was really hard for me to get out. But yeah, I definitely see myself as an inspiration to people. And definitely don't let people make their excuses of, I can't do it, because you can do it. You literally can do it. It's just, you have to want it. Like, you really have to want it.
Well, I'm so proud of you for doing this. That's so awesome. And I feel like a lot of people will listen to you because you've been there, done that, versus somebody who just has textbook knowledge on it.
Yeah, yeah.
We need,
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I also know what to look for, like, when people are, because it's really easy to delude yourself especially when you're in addiction. Like, that, you know, I'll stop tomorrow, or I'll stop next week, or this is my last time, or just like all the things that I used to say to myself every single day that would never happen. Like, I can just see right through that. So I'm just like, no, you're just deluded right now. That's what it is. You're in your head, and like, you might not even realize that you're deluded, but you're deluding yourself into thinking that this is manageable, this is okay, I can stay in my addiction, I can function, I'm a functional addict. All those things I used to tell myself, but none of it was true. It's just, your brain gets rewired when you do drugs, and it starts telling you things. Like, you become your own worst critic in a way, where your brain is just rewired to a point where all it cares about is your next fix. It doesn't matter who you hurt. It doesn't matter that you have no place to sleep, that you're sleeping downtown on the cement. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It's just, I need to get high. I need to not feel things. And so it's just, it really takes rewiring your brain, and it takes time. You have to be patient. You can't, it doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to stop using drugs and then next week be perfectly back to yourself. I've had to work at this for like over 3.5 years. And like, it took me like 1.5 years before I even got into housing. So, I mean, I had to work for it, and I had to stay committed to it.
And you weren't just doing it. I mean, your mentality was there on your own of what you needed to do, but you did you went and reached out to a rehabilitation program.
Well, actually,
what did you do? What did you
do? So when I got clean this last time, I was homeless, and my mom came to town. She had done this like 2 or 3 times with me before, where I would call her and I'd be like, hey, she'd be like, are you ready for help? And I'd be like, I was, 2 or 3 times I went with her, and she'd take me one time she took me to California and we did a road trip, and she just kept me away from the drugs and all this stuff. And then I'd go to rehab, and then I'd relapse, and then I ended up back in Seattle, and then the cycle would start over again. So this last time, I remember I was downtown and I ended up talking to my mom, and she was going to be in town, and she's like, well, do you want help again? I'll help you one more time. I'll give you one more chance to do this. So I said, yeah, I want this. And, but I told her specifically, like, if I'm going to be clean, like I need to get on like something like maintenance, something. So I'm on methadone now. And so what ended up happening is I went to a rehab, and I spent almost 30 days there. I had an incident happen towards the end of rehab where I didn't feel safe at the rehab anymore, so I ended up leaving the rehab before the 30 days. They were so trying to keep me there to get as much money out of us as they could, but I just ended up leaving, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just got it. It just, being in the rehab reminded me of being in boarding school, like especially this last one I went to. Like, they had us walking lines, like they had like every morning you had to like line up and like sit in these chairs, and like there was like these people that like would be like leaders in the rehab, so there was like a hierarchy in there too. So like there was a bunch of things that reminded me of the program. So I was being re-traumatized in rehab. So when I got out, I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was just like, I don't really want to go back to the streets. I don't really want to, and also by that time, I had a girl that I was interested in. We're like friends with benefits still to this day. And I decided to get sober, and then she decided to get sober. So we both went off to rehab. And this was right when fentanyl was starting to creep into all the drugs. Like, this is just like, that's why I say, like, statistically, I shouldn't be here, because the fentanyl was just starting to get into everything. So if I had continued for like 2 to 3 months longer, I wouldn't be here. Like, there's no doubt in my mind I wouldn't be here. So it was a combination of being sick and tired, and then also just realizing that this isn't even possible to have my addiction anymore without killing myself. Like, you literally cannot get high these days unless you're testing your drugs, and no addict does that. They just want to get high. They don't spend time doing that. They're not going to get a drug test kit and test it. And if you are, good on you. Props on you. But I would never do that. And so I realized that this isn't like,
desperate. They're probably so desperate at that point. They're not thinking straight. They're not in their right mind.
Yeah.
Thinking
and so,
rational.
Yeah, totally. And so I just realized that, like, I can't even have this addiction anymore. It's not that it was that it made sense to have that addiction before, but makes even less sense now, because I'm so self-destructive that I'm just going to end up killing myself. Like, there's not a get high anymore. It's just, you're either not high or you're so high that you're dying because of the fentanyl. So that realization hit me, and I was just like, it's just not worth it anymore. It's just not worth it. I don't make any friends out being homeless. I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I was my body wasn't doing good. And I found out later that I had like some stuff going on with my body that if I had continued, that would have killed me. So I just got out at the right time. It was a combination of a bunch of things that came together that got me clean. But the thing is just that made me stay clean is just like having support, and just I think this doing this podcast helped too, because I started this podcast right after maybe like a half a year after I got sober, and I was like,
Really?
If I start something that I can give back to a community, and like I got involved in this survivor community, and then I decided, I was like, what if I start a podcast and help people? Because I've always been like that kind of person that people listen to and like come for guidance, and like people have always come up to me and felt like they could open up and talk to me about things. So I was like, what if I start a podcast? Because I saw people having these podcasts for like a specific school, and then I was like, but it's more than that. It's like there's all these different kind of schools. So what if I made a podcast with all of the schools, like religious schools, wilderness schools, TTI schools, any abusive setting, and I just talk about it. And so starting this podcast has really helped me to gain a sense of community, and just like, now it's like if I were to relapse, I would feel so like, not just like disappointed in myself, but also that I'm letting down so many people, and just like I have so much more of a purpose than doing that. Like I don't need to be self-destructive anymore. I can actually help people. And so I get comments from people saying like, you don't realize how many children you probably saved from being sent to these places, how many parents you probably deprogrammed from sending their kids away. So like I have purpose now. So I feel like that's a big part of it, is just I have something to, I still deal with a lot of depression. Like I'm not perfect. I still deal with issues. I still have major anxiety. I still have agoraphobia. I barely leave my house. So anybody watching this, don't think that I'm just like perfect and like cured now. I have my issues still. I just don't, I don't try and hide those issues. I don't try and cover them up. You
And
know what I
let's talk about coping, because that's exactly what you're doing. That's exactly what I'm doing. And part of it is artwork. I'm noticing some art in the back, but
Yeah.
you do artwork, you're doing podcasts, you do a lot of things. And then also a lot of survivors from these places end up being addicts, because
Yeah.
that's their way of dealing with it. That's their way of coping. And when they see you, because they're watching the show, and a lot of survivors will gravitate to these shows because we want to feel like we're not the only ones, and we'll watch the show, and now you're getting into the drug addiction and how you healed and how you overcame it, and it's so inspiring to them. And how many people are you helping in that direction too?
Yeah, I know. I wonder, because I
that you don't even know.
I really don't know, but I do know that I have had like the amount of people that ended up doing hard drugs, that like out of all the interviews I've done, like it's a good like 75 to 80% or higher percentage of people that never touched hard drugs before they went into the program, maybe were smoking weed and like experimenting with alcohol a little bit, and then instantly when they got out, heavy into hard drug use, just like I did, like I did.
So many survivors have done that. They weren't doing anything before, or something that was light, and then they ended up doing hardcore drugs.
Yeah.
And it's so sad.
Yeah, it really is. So I try and just be a beacon of hope for people, and just realize that literally if I can do it, you can. Like the only person making excuses at this point is you. Like you are the one making excuses. If like, and you know, excuses isn't a bad thing. Like people have their own reasons for staying in their addiction. Okay. If you feel like the addiction is the only, like for me, when I started using drugs this most recent time again, I felt like it was either I use drugs to cope with this, or I'm going to kill myself. Like it was one or the two. Like I can't. And a big part of me relapsing also was my dad has Alzheimer's, and so I'm a daddy's boy, and just I was living with my dad at the time, and having to see him every day and just like slowly like kind of just fall off and forget things. Smartest person I've ever known in my life, my dad. So just seeing him deteriorate, just it brought me to a point where I just didn't want to live anymore. And so I was like, if I don't do something to cope right now, I know myself too well, I'm going to kill myself. I'm just going to kill myself. I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this pressure. I have so much shit going on in my mind. So I just numbed myself, and that became a habit again. And I got really heavy into it. So.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you have good relations with your parents, right?
Yeah.
But before, when you got sent to the program, they weren't believing you about the child abuse. Was it them or other people in your family? Was it them?
No, it was them. I was adopted also. That's an important thing. But
you forgave them for that and not being supportive the way you wanted. You weren't supported the way you wanted, and you were kind of 20 questioned.
Yep. And that started at age 7. That was like a long period throughout my life where it was just an accumulation of a bunch of different trauma over a long period of time that ended up leading to that. My mom was the one that I kind of didn't get along with as the most, because my mom's just really she likes to micromanage things. She likes to be in control of every single aspect, and she likes to have the last word every single time. So it becomes really hard for you to communicate with somebody like that. So my mom and I butted heads a lot. It was actually her idea to send me to the program. My dad didn't want to send me there, but she was like, if you don't go along with this, we're going to get a divorce.
That's
Like, I'm
sad.
just going to, so
That's really sad.
yeah.
I feel, but I'm speculating, that because they saved you the numerous times of when you were a drug addict and they tried to help you, was that their way, do you think, of supporting you? Do you know what I'm saying? Is that where the forgiveness came in? Because they were
Yeah,
saving you.
yeah, that was part of it, but also just like looking within myself and just realizing that regardless of like, even if they had believed me 100%, like back in the day, whatnot, that doesn't 100% for sure mean that anything would have happened to the person either. So I felt when I got clean, like there was certain stuff I wanted to hold on to and certain stuff that I was sick and tired of holding on to and sick and tired of just being angry all the time over something that I can't change. Like I can't change that. So it's just like, just realizing the things that I can't change and just realizing that my mom was always there for me when I called her, hey, I want to get clean. Like she did this like 3 or 4 times with me and spent all of her money to buy me food, to take me to other states, to get me away from the drugs. She did her best. And I did some fucked up shit too. I did some really fucked up shit to my parents. Like I stole from my parents. I lied to my parents on multiple occasions. I've done my share of fucked up things too. So if I'm gonna hold things against my parents, like I need to hold things against myself too. Like I need to be balanced with that. So instead of doing that, just like I've forgiven my parents, but I'm never gonna forget what they did to me, if that makes sense. Like I'm
No,
just not gonna hold on to animosity anymore. You know what I mean?
that's so awesome. I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful. You're on a different spiritual level. You're on a higher spiritual level, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you. And we should definitely do another episode on the Sika because I think that's important, especially since it just like got passed not too long ago. I think it's important to have people know what the fuck it actually says. You know what I mean? Instead of just going off of what people say it says. You know what I mean?
Including us.
Yeah.
You know the meat has been taken out, but what meat?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So let's find out what's going on. Let's compare, like you said, what was it before it got signed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do our homework and let's get James to help us.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll do it together. Okay. Thank you so much for having me on the show again. I appreciate it.
No problem. You have a wonderful day, and we will catch you on the next one. If you guys have watched so far in the video, please, please, please give a like, subscribe if you're not already, comment down below, and share the video. Like, share it to everybody you know. I don't care. Just share it everywhere. And let's blow this channel up. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, so that's insane to me. That's literally insane.
I'm sorry, how many episodes now?
153, I think, something like that.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Keep going, honey.
Yeah. You have a wonderful day.
You too, hon. Love you.
Okay. Yep. Bye.
Hi, Jordan. This is Jeneen Miller. And there was something that was very important that I did deal with after surviving Victory Christian Academy when I did decide to leave home and told my mom I was going to Kara's house. And then she was pretty much saying, I'll never make it. This life is hard. It's a cruel world out there and you're just never going to make it, right? There was one point where I was dreading coming back home and I needed to get my birth certificate so I can get my license, right? And it wasn't enough time because I was trying to meet the deadline of my birthday to get my license on my 18th birthday so I can drive to work, because I was working at that point at Henson Aviation. I needed my license. So in order for me to get it, I needed my birth certificate, which my parents had. So I thought I was going to confront them, but they were not home. And then my boyfriend at the time, Chris, said, well, you have the key to your own house. It's your house, Jeneen. And I thought to myself, no, they're going to think I'm a criminal. I shouldn't go in there. Can you imagine, so apprehensive about going into my own house at 17 years old. I'm a minor, and feeling guilty like a criminal, like I'm breaking into my house, right? So he said, Jeneen, it's your house. Just do it. We don't have time. So I tried, and the key didn't work, and my heart sank. And anyway, I thought, no, this isn't happening. I tried putting the key in again, and it didn't work. You can only imagine how I was feeling at the time. All these emotions of I'm not good enough, I'm a bad kid. He said, hurry up and let's just get in the window. We don't have time. And I thought to myself, oh my God, they think I'm a criminal. This is really going to prove to them that I'm a criminal, right? They'll probably call the cops, even though as an adult, this is not a bad thing. I'm getting my birth certificate, right? And it's my house, and you just changed the locks on the door. So I am actually in the right here, but as a child, I felt like I was a criminal. At any rate, he said, just crawl in your bedroom and then open up the door and let me in. So that's what I did. We got the certificate, my birth certificate, that was all. Still feeling like a criminal. Ran out the door and made sure, I made sure I locked the door and then crawled back out the window. And then Chris fastened the window back up. You never knew that I went into the house. But can you imagine on the way back to Kara's house feeling that my parents completely shut me out with that changing the lock, or thought I was so bad that you had to change the lock on the front door. This is pertinent to my interview because of the fact also that my parents didn't make it easy for me. And another part of it is that they had made a report on me being a runaway. So if you think I'm a runaway and you want me back because you were so concerned you made a report, why did you change the locks on the door? When I confronted them about this years later, they claimed that they were afraid of getting robbed or something, or, it wasn't me, it was somebody else or something, or, they needed to change the locks for their safety because of something else. They were never robbed. Do you know what I'm saying? It was me. They did that because of me, and I know it. They're lying. But needless to say, let's just say they were frightened, right, about their safety because of somebody else robbing them. Why didn't they get a hold of me? They knew I was at Kara's house, right? And say, you know what, here's the key. Here's the new key to the house. But no, that's not what happened to me. Okay, anyway, if you would like to incorporate this into the interview, maybe at the end, that would be great. Thank you, Jordan, for doing this interview for me and spreading awareness on not only child abuse that happens in the lockdown residential program, but also child abuse that happens in the home. Thank you. Hi, Jordan. I just want to add another piece, and it is when Kara's parents were highly concerned after a couple of months if my parents were worried about me. They wanted to reassure them that I was at their house, like normal parents would be worried, and that's what they thought they were. And what they found out was quite the contrary. Kara's father had said, "You tell us how your mom is abusive with you, but you are covering up for your father. Here's why. Let's have a talk. This is what your father said to us." And these are his exact words. "Have a seat." They sat me down in the living room and said, they reassured my parents that I was okay, that I was safe with them. And my father said, "Well, I didn't want Jeneen to go to a friend's house. I wanted her on the streets so she knows what it's really like out there." And I tried to take it in, sort of. I was comfortably numb, and I still am. It was just, nothing was a shock to me anymore, what came out of my family's mouth. But I just looked at him and I thought, what else is new, right? Doesn't shock me. And then I went on to my own business. But he said, stop defending your father, because this is what he said to us. And it's not normal for parents to do this. And I was very shocked, because he lived with his mother and father until he was 27. He was never on the street. He never knew what it was like to be on the street. So why are you wishing that for your daughter? And even if you were on the street, why would you wish that on your daughter? I'm 17 years old at this time. And my father said this to Kara's family, Kara's father. And at any rate, I just don't know how you can justify this. It correlates with the runaway report, because they made a report when I was 17 that I ran away from home. But then what was coming out of my father's mouth was he could give a rat's ass that I was on a street or not. Sorry about my profanity, but that's pretty much what he said. And he did say it. That is coming from Kara's father. And Kara's father has no reason to say something that's a lie, because why would he want to hurt me? They were only helping me get to the next level in my life. And honestly, if it wasn't for them, perhaps I would have been on the street. So thank you so much for Kara's family and Kara's father and mom, because there was the stepping stone to get me to the next level. And I have much gratitude to them. I just don't know how parents can justify saying these things, saying these awful, cruel things to their own daughter, and wishing this for them, no matter how angry they get. I mean, go take a walk around the block. Go see a therapist. Do what you need to do, punch a bag. But to wish this on your 17-year-old daughter, there are moms and fathers that will go see their children in jail and have more respect for their kid in jail than my parents did. That's how I feel. All right. Thank you so much for interviewing me, Jordan.